Hello everyone, Gravel here, with the second episode of Bow Theory, where I show you melee noobs how to adapt. If you've got no idea what adapt means, then I'm afraid you'll have to watch the previous episode, which you can find in the description below, as we will be building upon what we learned in that episode. For those of you who have watched the first episode, you should remember that this is the order I'll be covering each element in. So, once I grab a bow and some arrows, we can get into prediction. Warning, it's the longest one, but bear with me, it's very important. Your prediction is the knowledge you use to predict what other players will do. It is your ability to choose a point to shoot at based on the information you've received. So, if I predict that Steve's head is going to stay exactly where it is because it's a block, then Steve's head is my point, and this is a good prediction. Now you'll notice that I missed there, even though my prediction was correct. This was due to a lack of accuracy, as I failed to shoot the point I chose. Likewise, if I predict that Steve's head will teleport one block to the right, with the magic of YouTube editing, I will miss again, even though I was perfectly accurate. This was due to a poor prediction. As we all know, I don't know how to edit my videos. Hopefully this should highlight the difference between accuracy and prediction. Prediction is picking the point, and accuracy is shooting it. Now you might also notice that both arrows landed in the same place, but for completely different reasons. This is good for you, as of course you know what went wrong, but your opponent doesn't. This means you get to correct your mistakes without your opponent knowing your weaknesses and exploiting them. Now I will show you the factors that affect your prediction, apart from your experience, because this is obvious. First, let me introduce you to Ace, as he will be helping us with the demonstrations. Ace is the average champion's enemy. He's not completely clueless. Oh, get back here. He's not completely clueless, but he doesn't know the map that well, or how valuable playing the objective is. Because of this, Ace will wander aimlessly until he finds somewhere he can be useful. Now, since prediction is all about trying to work out what your opponent is doing, the fact that Ace has no idea what he's doing makes it very hard to predict him. If you were to ask me, where will Ace be in the next 5 seconds? I wouldn't have a clue. He could just stand there for 5 seconds, or he could walk all the way back to the start. But if I place an emerald generator where he can see it, Ace will go after it. I can now predict what he is going to do and shoot him more reliably. What this shows us is that the more experienced the player is, and the more obvious the best play for them to make is, the more predictable they are. It is also worth knowing that mistakes aren't very predictable, and since less experienced players make more mistakes, this further makes them less predictable than experienced players. Furthermore, Ace has a huge advantage over the Emerald Generator, as it cannot fight back, so he has even more of a reason to go for it, making that decision more predictable. Now you'll notice that Ace is walking in a straight line, as this is the most efficient route towards his objective. However, it's also the most predictable route, which means he probably wouldn't use it if he knows there's a ranger shooting at him. Therefore, it's a good idea to be stealthy to try and keep him in this predictable state for as long as possible. When you are spotted, the enemy may use a strafing pattern to make it slightly harder to predict them. I shall demonstrate this now by placing the ammo generator in this cobweb and Ace over here. Now if I predict Ace is going to be here, I could be wrong because he's moved. I might predict that again, and again because of his strafing pattern, he will avoid the arrow. But if we try that again with a more competent ranger, you'll see that Ace is taken out quickly. Because there is a pattern to his movement, so it can still be predicted quite easily. In order to do better, he might think up a more complicated strafing pattern. But no matter how good it is, there will always be a pattern, as humans are not capable of truly random movement, and so he can still be predicted. If Ace really didn't want to get shot, he would have to dodge the arrows. Dodging occurs when a player sees the path of your arrow and moves out of it or refuses to enter it. To simulate this, I have built a dodging simulator. It's quite simple. Basically, the diamond block represents a brute capping the peak opposite to me, and when I go to shoot at it, it sees my arrow coming and moves out of the way of it, even though it would take like 6 of them to kill it. This is the brute dodging my arrow. You'll notice it is impossible for me to shoot the block, even though my accuracy is fine. And no, you can't just shoot where the block would be. The reason for this is that when a player dodges your arrow, it destroys your prediction. This means you will correctly predict them 0% of the time. These were the psychological factors which affect prediction, and by far the most important thing to do when you're working with them is to pay attention. I've got one last example to demonstrate how important paying attention is. So, here's Ace. And there is no way he's going to jump in the lava, right? So it's sensible to predict he will go anywhere by the lava pool. However, because you were paying attention, you saw Ace drink a fire resistance potion, which then means he's probably going to jump in the lava of his own free will to get value out of that potion. By paying attention, you were able to predict something you wouldn't have been able to predict otherwise. This is especially relevant in Champions because of all the unique skills. My head hurts now. So let's move away from all the psychological factors and discuss more physical ones. As distance increases, your prediction decreases. This is because it takes longer for your arrows to travel, so you have to predict further into the future. As you can see, almost instant. Takes a few seconds. Or 1 second. When you deal knockback, your opponent is forced to move in a direction, which makes it very easy to predict where they will be. This is known as controlled knockback, as you know when they will experience it and where they will go. So if I shoot ace, I'll see he moves backwards. It's very easy to shoot him from there. The opposite of this is random knockback, which occurs when another player deals the knockback. Because you don't know when the enemy will take it, or where they will go after taking it, this makes it very hard to predict the enemy player's movement. So if we put ace up against the team friendly brute, you'll see that shooting him is a bit of a pain, because he goes all over the place and you don't know when he'll fly. Speaking of movement, if your target has more mobility, they will be less predictable, since there are more places they could be in the same time as someone without as much mobility. This is also true for the opposite, as the less mobility someone has, the more predictable they will be, up to no mobility, where your predictions should be 100% reliable. Moving on to something I really like, when it isn't glitched, invisibility. You may think that all invisibility does is make you impossible to predict, since you stop receiving information, but that logic will only get you killed by a competent ranger. You see, when an assassin goes invisible, you've already been collecting loads of information on them. The invisibility only limits you from getting much more. This means you should still be able to shoot an assassin after they have gone invisible. But it gets better, as the assassin believes they have an advantage over you, which I explained before makes them more predictable, as now you've got a bunch of information and it's better for predictions, meaning you're pretty likely to shoot them and counter their skill completely. Unfortunately, because you aren't receiving any new information, if the information you do have is incorrect, then you're in trouble. Therefore, invisibility heavily rewards you for being good at predicting and heavily punishes you for not being so, which is why I really like it, as it motivates you to improve. This is why you can find 13 instances of me shooting invisible assassins in my previous videos. This is similar for getting blinded, however it's a lot harder to pull off because of the massive accuracy decrease. And that's it for prediction. So to summarize, your prediction is the knowledge you use to predict what other players will do. It's your ability to choose a point to shoot at based on the information you've received. Your prediction is 0% if the target is dodging your arrows, but apart from that, your predictions are more reliable when you and the target are more experienced, when your target has an easy objective or a large advantage, when you're stealthy, when your target isn't strafing, when you pay more attention, when your target takes controlled knockback, and when they have less mobility. Your predictions are less reliable when the opposite is true. So when both players have less experience, if the enemy player's objective is difficult to accomplish, if the enemy player is at a disadvantage, if you're not stealthy, if the enemy player is strafing, if you're not paying any attention, if the enemy player is taking random knockback, and if the enemy player has more mobility. Thank you very much for watching the video. I know it's really long, and I made quite a few mistakes because I didn't expect the zombie and the villager to be that wild. But hopefully you guys liked it as much as you did with the first one. I received such a positive response to that video, and I'm very grateful for that. But please do also give me some tips on how to improve. For example, I noticed that you couldn't really see the arrows against the granite, so I changed them to quartz this time. Anyway, bye.